She arrived on the last train, before the storm. Nobody in Harlan's Crossing had been expecting a woman on that train. Certainly not Daniel Holt. He was standing at the edge of the platform in the dark with his hat pulled low and his coat buttoned to throat, watching the passenger car empty out, counting faces, looking for one in particular. He was looking for Margaret Eloise Farrow, age 34, schoolteacher from Laramie, who had written him 3 careful letters over the course of 2 months and agreed to come to Wyoming as his bride. What stepped off the train, instead, was someone else entirely. She was younger than 34. She was slight, with dark circles under her eyes and a carpet bag clutched so tightly to her chest that her knuckles had gone pale. Her coat was too thin for the weather. She was looking over her shoulder before she even finished stepping down onto the platform. The way a person looks when they are running from something and haven't decided yet if they're far enough away. She scanned the platform. Her eyes landed on Daniel. She walked straight to him. "Are you Daniel Holt?" she said. He looked at her. "I am." She swallowed once. "I'm Margaret Farrow," she said. "I'm the woman you've been writing to." He studied her face for a long moment. The train was hissing behind her, releasing steam into the cold night air. The station master was disappearing inside. In a few minutes this platform would be empty, and the last storm of the season was rolling in fast from the northwest, and the road back to the ranch would be impassable by midnight. He knew she was lying. He could see it in the set of her jaw, the slight tremor in her voice, the way her eyes couldn't quite hold his. But he also saw the thinness of her coat. He saw that she was alone. He saw that whatever she was running from was real enough to put her on a train in the middle of the night to a place she had never been, to stand in front of a stranger and speak a name that wasn't hers. He picked up her carpet bag. "The wagon's this way," he said. "If you love slow, healing stories about second chances and hidden truths, stay right here with me. And when this story is over, I want you to drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Now, let me take you back to Harlan's Crossing, Wyoming, on the coldest night of the year. The ride to the ranch took 40 minutes in good weather. That night it took closer to an hour, and by the time Daniel pulled the wagon into the yard, the first hard flakes of snow were coming sideways through the air. He got the horses in the barn without rushing, working with the quiet efficiency of a man who had done the same task 10,000 times. She stood by the barn door and watched him, not offering to help, not making small talk, just watching with those careful eyes. He brought her inside. The house was plain but warm. A fire had been going in the main room, and the kitchen was clean, and the table had been set with 2 cups, because he had expected a guest tonight, just not this one. He put water on for coffee. He sat down across from her at the kitchen table. He looked at her steadily and said nothing. She lasted about 30 seconds under that gaze. "I'm not Margaret Farrow," she said. "I know," he said. She blinked. Something moved through her face. Relief, maybe, or the thing that comes just before it. "Then why did you let me get on the wagon?" "You needed somewhere to go," he said. That much was plain. She looked at the table. She pressed her lips together. For a moment he thought she might cry, and he would not have known what to do with that, but she didn't. She was the kind of woman who had perhaps already done most of her crying somewhere else. "My name is Nora," she said. "Nora Vass." He waited. She folded her hands on the table. "Margaret Farrow is my cousin, was my cousin." She corrected herself softly. "She passed away 3 weeks ago. Fever. It came fast." She paused. "She had already written to you. She had already agreed to come. And I had nowhere else to go, so I—" She stopped. "So you came in her place," he said. "I know it was wrong," she said quickly. "I know that. You were expecting someone else. Someone you had chosen, and I am not her, and I understand completely if you want me gone in the morning." "And where would you go in the morning?" he asked. She did not answer that, which was its own answer. He got up and poured the coffee. He set a cup in front of her and sat back down. "I'll tell you the situation plainly," he said. "I need a wife, not because I am looking for love or companionship or anything of that nature. I have a daughter. She's 8 years old. Her name is June. Her grandmother, my late wife's mother, has been threatening to petition the court to have June removed from my care on the grounds that a single man working a cattle ranch is no fit environment to raise a girl." He said all of this in the same level tone he might use to describe the weather. If I appear before that judge next week without a wife, there's a real chance I lose my daughter. So I placed an advertisement. Margaret Farrow answered it. And now Margaret Farrow is not here. He looked at her across the table. You are. Nora Vast sat very still. You're asking me, she said slowly. I'm presenting you with the facts, he said. What you do with them is your own business. She looked at him for a long time. He let her look. He was not a man who needed to fill silence with words. What happened to your wife? She asked. She died 2 years ago. Heart condition she had from birth. We knew it might happen. It happened sooner than we hoped. And June, Nora said, does she know you were writing to someone? She knows I was looking for help. She doesn't know the particulars. Is she here now? Sleeping. He nodded toward the back hallway. She'll meet you in the morning. Nora looked down at her coffee cup. She turned it slowly in her hands. He watched her think, watched the calculations move quietly across her face, the weighing of things, the measuring of risk against risk. I should tell you something, she said at last. The reason I had nowhere to go. She looked up at him. I was engaged, back in Laramie. The man I was engaged had turned out to be the kind of man who believed that what belonged to him stayed where he put it. She said this plainly, without drama, in the same way you describe old weather. When I tried to leave, he made it difficult. When his difficulty didn't work, he made promises I no longer trusted. So I left while he was away one morning, and I got on the first train I could find a ticket for, and I took my cousin's letter with me because it was the only destination I had. Daniel looked at her. Is he likely to follow? I don't know, she said honestly. He's proud. Proud men don't always let things lie. He nodded once. He considered this the way he considered everything, quietly, from all sides. That's useful to know, he said. Thank you for telling me. She looked almost surprised that he didn't say more than that. So, he said, we have a week before the hearing. That's enough time for the judge to see a settled household. After that, you would be free to stay or go as you see fit. If you stay, we keep the arrangement practical. I won't make demands on you that you didn't agree to. You'd have your own room, your own space, the house, and whatever you need to run it. He paused. If you go, I'll give you enough to get somewhere safe. Why would you do that? She asked. Give me money to leave, after everything. He picked up his coffee cup. Because being in a place you don't want to be is its own kind of trap, he said. I won't be the reason a woman is trapped. Nora Vast looked at this man across the table for a long moment. This quiet, plain-spoken man with the straight back and the careful eyes, and the daughter sleeping in the back room who might be taken from him. All right, she said. I'll stay for the week. He nodded. Room's the second door on the left. There are extra blankets on the shelf. He washed out his coffee cup, banked a fire, and went to bed, just like that, as if the strangest night of both their lives was simply a thing to be gotten through and then rested on. She sat at the kitchen table alone for a while after that. She listened to the wind come down hard outside and the snow tick against the window glass, and she thought about the fact that she had just agreed to pretend to be the wife of a man she had met 2 hours ago, in a state she had never visited, using a name that wasn't hers. And somehow, impossibly, it was the safest she had felt in months. June Holt was not what Nora expected. She had expected shy. She had expected withdrawn, the way children often were who had lost a mother young and grown up in a quiet house with a quiet father. But June came into the kitchen the next morning with the full confidence of a child who had opinions about everything and no particular reason to keep them to herself. She was small for 8, with her father's steady eyes and a braid that had mostly come undone overnight. She looked at Nora very directly. Papa said someone was coming. She said, That's right, Nora said. Are you going to stay? For a while, Nora said carefully. June seemed to find this acceptable. She climbed into her chair and reached for the biscuits Nora had gotten up early to make, because she needed something to do with her hands, and cooking was a thing she knew how to do when she was nervous. She watched the little girl take a bite. She watched her eyes go slightly wide. These are good, June said. Thank you, Nora said. Mama used to make biscuits, June said, without any particular heaviness, just as a fact. but poplars are flat. They come out like little rocks. From the doorway, Daniel said, "I can't hear you, June." "I know," she said serenely and took another biscuit. Something small and warm moved through Nora's chest. She turned back to the stove before it could show on her face. The days before the hearing settled into a rhythm that surprised her. She had expected stiffness. She had expected the performance of a household that didn't quite fit together. And there was some of that, yes, the careful politeness, the small adjustments of two people learning each other's edges. But there was something else underneath it that she hadn't expected. There was ease. Not all at once. Not completely. But Daniel Holt moved through his house in a way that left room for other people. He didn't fill every space with his presence the way some men did. He didn't make her feel like a guest who was staying too long. He told her where things were kept. Nora looked over her shoulder. She asked if you were going to stay. He was quiet for a moment. "I told her I didn't know, that it was your choice to make." Nora turned slowly to face him. She dried her hands on the kitchen cloth. "What did she say to that?" she asked softly. "She said she hoped you would," he said. "She said it felt like the house was breathing again." Nora stood very still with the cloth in her hands and felt something move through her chest that she had no word for. Something that was the opposite of the cold and the running and the looking over her shoulder. Something that felt against all odds and all reason. A great deal like beginning. "I came here with a borrowed name," she said quietly. "I came here with nothing honest to offer." "You came here with yourself," he said. That turned out to be enough. Outside the kitchen window, the Wyoming night was enormous and clear and full of stars, and inside the house a little girl was sleeping peacefully in the back room with a braid come undone and a heart full of ordinary happiness. And a man was standing in a kitchen doorway looking at a woman who had arrived like an answer to a question he hadn't known how to ask. "I'd like to stay," Nora said, "if that's still something you'd want." Daniel Holt crossed the kitchen slowly. He took the cloth gently from her hands and set aside. He looked at her the way he looked at things he intended to take care of for a long time. "Yes," he said, "that is very much something I would want." And in Harlan's Crossing, Wyoming, on a quiet night at the end of the coldest season anyone could remember, a woman who had come with someone else's name finally found something that was entirely her own. A home, a child's easy trust, a man who had looked straight at her borrowed story and chosen her anyway. It turns out the wrong woman on the right train was exactly where she was supposed to be. If this story moved you today, I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Tell me what part stayed with you. Tell me if you saw yourself somewhere in Nora's story. And please tell me where in the world you are watching from, because this community is the most beautiful one I know, and I love hearing from every corner of it. If you are not subscribed yet, please do that now, because there are so many more stories waiting here for you, quiet and warm and full of the kind of love that lasts. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.